Alright, part 2 of installing Gentoo Linux inside Virtualbox. Let's get started. Alright, so I'm picking up where I left off in part 1 of installing Gentoo inside Virtualbox. The next part in the installation is configuring the Linux kernel. Here in my VM, we're exactly where I left off. We're already cherooted into the live CD here. And basically we just need to go ahead and configure and install our kernel. So I have absolutely no idea what to do here. So we're going to read the wiki. Alright, the core around which all Linux distributions are built, of course, is the kernel. It's a layer between, the user and the system hardware. Yeah, we get all that. Okay, choose an appropriate kernel source and install it using a merge. And here's the command. Okay. Well, let's run that command. A merge space -- ask space sys kernel / gentoo sources. It's calculating dependencies. Would you like to merge these packages? Yes. Not sure how long this particular install will take. Might be a minute. I'll go back to the wiki and continue reading. Alright, this will install the Linux kernel sources into /user /src, in which a symbolic link called Linux will be pointing to the installed kernel source. And then if we wanted to actually check that out, we could run the list command, ls /user /source /linux, and we would actually see what we just downloaded there. I may actually have to pause the video. This may take a second here. Yeah, I'll pause the video. I'll be back once this is done. Okay, so that just took a couple of minutes. Now again, to check, make sure that went well, we can run this command here, the ls command. So let's see. ls space -l space /user /source /linux. Yep, and there we have it. Linux -4.9.95 Gentoo. So that is the kernel source file. Alright, reading more of the wiki here. And this is kind of complicated here. Despite actually what the next sentence in the wiki says, manually configuring a kernel is often seen as the most difficult procedure a Linux user ever has to perform. Nothing is less true. Okay, so I just said this is kind of difficult. They're saying this is not really that difficult. Okay, whatever. Alright. One thing is true, it is vital to know the system when a kernel is configured manually. So, to get system information, we need to install the PCI utils. So I'm going to go back into the terminal here. Let me clear the screen. We need to install, so a merge space -- ask space sys -apps /PCI utils. We need to install this particular package. We'd like to merge these packages. Yes. And that will get us certain programs like the LSPCI program, which when you enter it in the terminal tells you some information about your hardware. And we're going to need this information to properly configure a kernel to our hardware. It's kind of hard to build a kernel to your particular hardware if you're not exactly sure what hardware you're running. So, alright, so that installed correctly. So now, I mentioned the LSPCI command. Let's just see if it's working. It is. And it tells us, information about our processor and graphics, etc. The SATA controller. Alright. Let's see. Activating required options. Actually, before we do that, let's see. Another source of information is lsmod. Okay. I'm not going to run that. Now go to the kernel source directory and execute make menu config. This will fire up a menu-driven configuration screen. Okay. So I'm going to do exactly what is written here. First, change directories. Change directory to /user/source/Linux, and then run make space menu config, all one word. Okay. All right. Okay. So this is where we configure our kernel. I have absolutely no idea what I need to tick on, tick off. We probably should actually really read the wiki in this case. So, all right. So activating required options. Make sure that every driver that is vital to booting the system, such as the SCSI controller, is compiled in the kernel and not as a module. Otherwise, your system will not boot completely. That's a good tip. So make sure the SCSI controller is compiled in the kernel. Okay. Select the exact processor type. It is also recommended to enable MCE features so that users are able to be notified of any hardware problems. On some architectures, such as x86_64, these errors are not printed in dmessage, but they're printed to /dev/MCE log. This requires the appadmin MCE log package. So you might want to install that. Also select a maintain yada yada yada. This is going to be quite a bit of reading, and what I select is not going to be what you select. Again, a lot of this is hardware specific. Compiling and installing yada yada yada. Now at the bottom of the screen we have an alternative. Use Genkernel. If manually configuring looks too daunting, then use Genkernel is recommended. It will configure and build your kernel automatically. That actually might be what I do. Because going through and doing it manually, again, you guys won't be able to follow exactly what I do, because what I do is not going to be what you do. Your hardware is going to be different. Your use case. Also, I'm doing this in a VM. You guys might be doing it on physical hardware. So what I might do is actually, just for purposes of this video, exit out of the manual kernel configuration. And I'm actually going to run the Genkernel, if I can figure out how to run Genkernel. Let's read this. Genkernel works by configuring a kernel nearly identical to the way the installation CD kernel is configured. Okay. Now we need to emerge. First of all, let's CD back out of the user source Linux directory. We don't need to be there right now. Anyway, emerge space --ask space sys-kernel /Genkernel. So we need to install the Genkernel package here. Would we like to merge these packages? Yes. This may take a minute. Anyway, we're just installing a package called Genkernel. And we wait. I'll pause the video. Alright, and the Genkernel package has finished installing. The next thing we need to do is edit the Fstab file, the file system table, so that the line containing /boot as the second field has the first field pointing to the right device. So we need to make sure that wherever the boot mount point is, that it's pointing to the right device, the /dev/SDA123, wherever the boot mount point happens to be on your system. So let me go ahead and open nano space -w space /etc/fstab. Alright, so, and every line of this is commented out. I guess we just need to add a line here. So /dev, in my case /dev/SDA1 and tab over a little bit. Actually, I don't need to create it. It's already here. Label equals boot. Oh, that's not the right line. Okay. Yeah, so I do need to add a line. So /dev/sda1. We'll space over /boot is the mount point. Alright. File system extended 4. Alright, space over defaults, space over 0 space 2. I think that's all I need to do here. Control X. Yes to save. Hit enter. Alright. Now we need to actually generate the kernel. Alright, now compile the kernel sources by running Genkernel all. Be aware that Genkernel compiles a kernel that supports almost all hardware. This compilation will take quite a while to finish. So it's going to be a big kernel. But you know what? I'm going to do it anyway. Genkernel all. Alright. And because it's already warned me in the wiki that this is going to take quite a while to generate this kernel, I'm going to pause the video. I'll be back sometime. Alright, and we have finished running Genkernel, so we've got our kernel now. That actually took a little bit of time. That took a little over an hour in this VM. On physical hardware using all of my CPU, probably wouldn't have been that bad. Again, we didn't configure the kernel the way you should. I mean, we pretty much installed all the modules running Genkernel, so takes a long time to do that. Right, back in the wiki here. Alright, once the Genkernel completes, a kernel, full set of modules, and initial RAM disk will be created. We will use the kernel and a init RAM disk when configuring a bootloader later in this document. So write down the names of the kernel and the init RD, as this information is used when the bootloader configuration file is edited. So we need to get the kernel and the init RD. And I believe the way we do this is this command here. So let me see. ls space /boot /kernel kernel asterisk. Alright. Space. And /boot /init ram fs. Yep. And another asterisk. Alright, so we probably should write this down. Okay, so I will write this down. I actually have a pen and paper. So they suggest writing it down. I'm going to write it down because we're going to need it later. Okay, continuing through the installation guide here. Optional, installing firmware. So this is purely optional. Let's see. Some drivers require additional firmware to be installed on the system before they work. This is often the case for network interfaces, especially wireless network interfaces. I'm not using Wi-Fi, but most of the firmware is packaged in this package here, Linux-firmware. You know what? Just for being on the safe side here, I'm actually going to install this package. I'm not sure if I really need it or not in this VM. Definitely don't need it for Wi-Fi since I'm not using Wi-Fi, but it may help us out later with some other stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and install sys-kernel /linux-firmware using a merge. And it's calculating dependencies. Would we like to merge these packages? Yes. Okay. Looks like this is going to take a little time. Actually, not too bad. Maybe about 45 seconds or so. So it's like it's guesstimating the time. Alright, and that is pretty much the end of this part of the installation. We move on to the next chapter, which is configuring the system. Alright, file system information about Fstab. That's our file system tables. Under Linux, all partitions used by the system must be listed in /etc/fstab. This file contains the mount points of those partitions, where they are seen in the file system structure. how they should be mounted and with what special options, automatically, etc., yada yada yada. Creating the file system tab file. Okay, so very important. We're actually going to read that. Let's see. Alright, the Linux firmware package is almost finished installing here. Okay. Alright, I'm going to pause the video for a second. I'm actually going to read a little bit about the Fstab. Okay, checking out what I need to do here in the SF tab, the file system table. Basically, I only created 2 partitions. Obviously, the big partition needs to be mounted to root. It's extended for defaults 01 /dev/sda2 was the swap partition I created. Mount point none, of course. Swap SW again for swap 00. I think that's correct. If I read through the wiki correctly. I'm going to save that. Alright, let's clear the screen here and continue through the wiki. Alright, now we didn't mount CD-ROM. I'm not going to use a CD-ROM here in the VM anyway, but we probably should have added a /dev/CD-ROM mount point. I guess I could go back and add that. I would need to add something like /dev/CD-ROM. Right, and then its mount point is going to be /mnt/CD-ROM. Alright, and then auto, then no auto, comma, user, and then 0 / 0. Alright, save that. Now I think I'm finished with the Fstab. Alright, network information. Host and domain information. So we need to set a host name. So this should be pretty straightforward here. So nano space -w space /etc/conf.d/hostname. Right, host name equals local host. Yeah, but what I would really like my host name to be is DT. Control X, yes to save. Alright. Alright, if a domain name is needed, I really don't need to add a domain name, but we could. See what else we need. Configuring the network. Alright, during the Gentoo installation, networking was already configured. However, that was the installation CD itself, not for the installed environment. So we may not have internet right now. Alright, right now the network configuration is made for the installed Gentoo Linux system. All networking information is gathered in the /etc/conf.d/net. It uses a straightforward, yet perhaps not intuitive syntax, but don't fear, everything is explained below. A fully commented example that covers many different configurations is available in /user/share, yada yada yada, whatever. Alright, first we need to install netifrc. So let me clear this. Alright, so with a merge we need to install, let's see, a merge space --ask space --no replace space, and then the package net.misc/netifrc. This will install netifrc for us. Alright. DHCP is used by default. For DHCP to work, a DHCP client needs to be installed. If a network connection needs to be configured because of a specific DHCP option, yada yada yada. So what it's suggesting us to do now is nano space -w space /etc/conf.d/net. Alright, there's nothing here. I'm not sure what we need to do here. Set both. Here, I'll let you guys read along with me. We just ran this command. If a network connection needs to be configured because, oh, so I may not have even needed this file. So let me just exit out of that. I may not have even needed that. Anyway, while I'm here, let's ping something. Let's see if we actually have internet. We still have internet here. All right, Control C to kill the ping. All right, automatically start networking at boot. Let's see, CD. We're going to change directory CD, and then space. Slash /etc slash init.d. All right, then we're going to do a link, ln, to create a link. Space -s space net.lo space net.eth0. All right, then we need to rc-update space add space net.eth0 space default. Okay, so service net.eth0 is added to the run level default. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what I'm doing there. Okay, if after booting the system we find out that the assumption of the network interface, which is currently documented as ETH0 Ethernet 0, was wrong, then execute the following steps to rectify it. Yeah, it probably will not be ETH0 on my machine. I bet it's going to be ENP3S0. So we may have to come back and edit that later. We'll see. Alright, the host files. Next, inform Linux about the network environment. This is defined in /etc/hosts. It helps in resolving host names to IP addresses for hosts that aren't resolved by the name server. So let me clear here. Alright. And let me cd back into the root directory. Alright, so nano space -w space /etc/hosts. Alright. And see what we need to do here. We have our local host here defined. But I think what I need to do is define it this way. I'm not sure how I need to define that. May just put it back as localhost. See, they've got 3 values here. tux.homenetwork. Okay, so I'm assuming that's host name, domain name. Okay. Then tux is his username, then localhost. Okay, I think I see what he's doing there. I didn't set a domain name. But anyway, DT. I didn't do a domain name. DT dot, I think domain name would work. Not exactly sure what I need to put there. I better Google that. Okay, anyway, yeah, it was right. It was actually set right to begin with. 127.0.0.1. The only value we need to give it localhost, and then the line up under it, ::1, also localhost, and then I added the line 127.0.1.1. That's DT, my username, .local domain. Then I tabbed over and wrote my username again, DT. And I think that's right. Gonna save it. We're gonna go with it. Alright. We have some problems with the networking when we reboot. Well, no, I made a mistake somewhere along the way. Alright. Optional, getting PCMCIA working. Since it's optional, we'll skip it. I'm not sure if I really need that. Root password, set the root password using the password command. So I think we had already done this once before, but let's do it again. Password, set the root password. doesn't like it because it's too short and too simple, but it will let me do it. So, alright. Init and boot configuration. Alright, Gentoo, or at least using OpenRC, uses the /etc/rc.conf to configure the services startup, shutdown, open up /etc/rc.conf, and enjoy all the comments in the file. Review the settings and change where needed. So, let's check out that file. Nano /etc/rc.conf. Okay. So, how long is this file? Kind of a long file. I probably actually do need to actually read it, so I will pause the video and actually read through this file. Okay, so I've kind of read the whole file here. I'm really not sure if I actually need to edit anything in this rc.conf file. I'm going to Control X, get back out of that. I don't want to mess around with it. Even though they say you can review the settings and change anything needed in that particular file, in the installation guide it really doesn't give any recommendations on anything that you really should change, so I'm assuming the default is probably good. Alright, next open the /etc/conf.d/keymaps to handle keyboard configuration. Now I don't think I really have to do anything with this, but just in case, nano --w /etc/conf.d/keymaps. Alright, so the key map's already been selected to US, so I'm good here. So, as I suspected, I'm probably good here. Control X. Alright. And then we need to do HW clock. Finally, edit /etc/conf.d/HW clock to set the clock options. If the hardware clock is not using UTC, then it is necessary to set clock equals local in the file. Okay. So I probably do want to do this. I don't want to use UTC time, so nano --w space. And the location of the file /etc/conf.d/HW clock. Alright. Clock is set to UTC. We want to change that to local. So this is that file. Originally, this was set to clock equals UTC. That's by default. I changed it to clock equals local. Alright, Control X. Yes to save. And that is the end of that portion of the installation. The next chapter is installing tools. Installing system tools. Some tools are missing from the Stage 3 archive because several packages provide the same functionality. It is now up to the user to choose which ones to install. The first tool to decide on has to provide logging facilities on the system. Unix and Linux have an excellent history of logging capabilities, so we need some kind of logging system. Gentoo offers several system logger utilities. A few of these include syslogd, syslog-ng, and metalog. Alright. I really have no preferences on any of this, so I'm just going to go with the first one they mentioned here. So we're going to emerge space --ask space, and then the name of the program is app-admin / the first one was syslogd. And yes, to merge the package. And then when this is done, we need to rc update add syslogd default to make sure it defaults, it starts up. Alright. So the command we need to run now is rc-update add syslogd default. Alright, so service syslogd added to run level default. Alright, now optional cron daemon. Do we need to set up cron? On a real installation I might. Not in a VM. I'm not going to use it. Optional file indexing. I actually do like the mlocate package. So I will go ahead and take time to emerge --ask, and the name of the program is sys-apps/mlocate. I do use that program in pretty much every distro I install, so it allows me to use some command line applications like locate, which I use locate a lot. Helps you find stuff. All right. Anyway, mlocate. So installing. I'm going to go back, read the rest of it. Remote access. I really don't need SSH in this VM. But to be able to access the system remotely after installation, add SSHD init script to the default run level. I'll go ahead and add it since it's just a simple command to run. Better to have it and not need it than not have it and need it later. So rc-update space add space SSHD space default, and that adds the service SSHD to the run level default. Okay, so we have some SSH stuff now. We need it. File system tools. Depending on the file system, it may be necessary to install the required file system utilities for checking the file system integrity. Note that tools for managing Extended 2, Extended 3, Extended 4 file systems, which is the E2FS progs package, are already installed. So I actually don't need those. It's already installed. Alright, we need to networking tools. We need to install a DHCP client. The one pretty much everybody uses is DHCP CD. Yeah, DHCP CD. That's the one I'm going to install here. So emerge space --ask space net-misc/DHCP CD. And do you want to merge these packages? Yes. Alright, this may take a second. Back to the browser. Also optional is installing a PPPoE client used to connect to the internet. Also optional, installing wireless networking tools. I'm not going to be using Wi-Fi, so I don't need to fool with this. Actually, the next step is configuring the bootloader. That's the next chapter, so let's go on to that one. So DHCP CD installed correctly. Let me clear the screen here. Get rid of all that output. Alright, configuring the bootloader. First we need to select a bootloader. I'm going to use Grub, so not going to bother with any of the alternatives to Grub. Pretty much everybody uses Grub. I use Grub. I like Grub. It works most of the time. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and install Grub. Using emerge space --ask space --verbose space, and then the name of the program sys.boot/grub:2. Alright, would we like to merge these packages? Yes, we would. Alright, I'll wait for this to install. Still waiting for Grub to install here. This is taking a few minutes here. You see just a ton of output here on the screen as it's emerging Grub here. While that's going on, I'll go ahead and catch up. The next thing after this actually does not install Grub, what we're doing here. What we just did. You actually do have to run a command after this called grub-install. That actually installs Grub on your system, and you need to specify a device. In my case, it would be /dev/sda. So that's actually the next command. Very simple command. Then after that, I don't need any of this UEFI stuff. That's it. Oh, we need to do the grub make config command here. that command there. So really, once the grub merge here finishes, this is taking a lot longer than I thought it would. But once this finishes, we just have 2 commands to run: grub-install /dev/sda, and then the grub make config command to generate our config file for grub. After that, we're getting close to being able to actually boot into our freshly installed Gentoo. We're getting real close, actually. Okay, so grub is finished emerging there. So now the command I need to run to actually install grub is grub-install space and then the device /dev/sda1. Not sda1. /dev/sda. It's important that it's just /dev/sda, that you don't specify a particular partition like sda1, sda2. /dev/sda. Alright. Installation is finished. No error reported. The last thing we need to do is do the grub make config. So clear the screen here. So grub-mk config space -o space, and then the location where the grub config needs to be located is /boot /grub/grub.cfg, grub.config. Right, that generated our grub configuration file. And back to the wiki. And it gives us some grub alternatives if we wanted to use something like Lilo, which we didn't, or EFI boot manager. We're not doing EFI, so actually we can just skip all this. Alright, we're ready to reboot the system. That's it. Let's see what happens. So, we need to exit out of the root. Alright, now I could just reboot and see what happens, but I'm actually going to shut down because I need to unmount the ISO. So shut down now. Should kill the VM for me. Control D to continue. What's this? It's taking a little longer to exit than I would have liked. I should have just did an X kill. Just a matter of fact, that's what I'm going to do. Tired of waiting for the machine to shut down. Alright, X kill. Took care of that. Now I need to go into my virtual machine, my Virtualbox settings, go to storage, and the ISO, I need to detach that. We don't need that anymore. And let's reboot. And grub is working. Hallelujah. It's a miracle. Let's capture our mouse here. Here, I'll switch to a full desktop here. Alright. And that is it. We have installed Gentoo. Control back out of that. Sorry about the small screen resolution here. Anyway, log in. Well, I think I messed it up trying to resize it. Yeah, some glitchiness in the VM. Anyway, switch back to... Alright, login. Now we can log in as the DT user I created, or we can log in as root. I'll log in as DT. Login incorrect. Did I not create the DT user? I thought we created a user called DT. We may not have. I may still only have the root user. Yeah, I typed that password in wrong. So root, password. Okay, so we do have the root user. Of course, we can go ahead and add a home user at this point. We could go ahead and install, Xorg or desktop environment of choice or window manager of choice, all of that let's see if we actually have network. So I'm going to ping google.com. So we don't have network. So really that's the last thing I want to get set up here before we call it a day. So let me go back to the wiki. Alright, the last chapter of the handbook is finalizing. Adding a user. So I guess we didn't add a user earlier, but we can add a user. Command to add a user is user add. User add, all one word, space, dash m, lowercase m, space, dash, capital G for groups. What groups do we want to add this guy to? Users, will, audio, video. Then we need to specify this user's shell, his default shell. I like bash, so /bin/bash, space, and then the name of this user. Sorry guys, I didn't realize I was in the way. Okay, and then the name of the user. I'm going to call him DT. So now we've created the DT user. Let's give that user a password. Pass WD space DT. Now we need to do DT's password. Alright, now let me exit. Now log in, DT. Now I have my home user. Very cool. Alright, so I'm going back to the configuring the network portion of the installation, trying to figure out where I might have slipped up here. First, let's run dhcp-cd just to see. dhcp-cd, and then eth0 says command not found. dhcp-cd. How is that command not found? Did we not install DHCP earlier? Let's see. Let's log in as root. So emerge, ask DHCP-cd. I thought we had installed this earlier, but maybe we didn't. And we'll wait for this to install. Actually, it looks like it's going rather quick. Okay. So how about dhcp-cd eth0? Alright, that interface is not found or it's invalid. Okay, so now we know the problem. I don't have eth0, which I kind of assumed I wouldn't. I believe on my hardware it's going to be ENP3S0. So, okay, actually it was ENP0S3, yeah. And when I run DHCP-cd ENP0S3, that particular command, I should have network now. So ping google.com. And I'm pinging Google, so now we're pretty much at the end of the base installation. The only thing is I need this to auto start. I need this DHCP-cd to auto start so I don't always have to launch it the way I just did. Let me Control-C to kill the ping. So the command, and I want to say we ran these commands earlier, but I guess they just didn't stick. rc-update space -add space -dhcp-cd space default. Yeah, service DHCP-cd added to run level default. Okay, so now every time the machine boots up, I should have networking. The only way to find out though is reboot, if I can spell reboot. Alright, there's grub. It's very cool that we didn't have any problems installing grub. That's usually one of the things that if you're going to slip up on something, messing up grub, it's usually where things are going to mess up on you. We wait for the system to boot. Alright. Log in. Now we can log in as either DT, the home user, or the root user. I'll log in as my home user this time. Let's ping google.com. And we have networking. That's it. Boom. Control C to close that. And that is the end of the Gentoo install. Or at least the base Gentoo install. Now, obviously we haven't installed any graphical programs of any kind. We haven't installed Xorg, we haven't installed desktop environment, login manager, any of the applications we would normally use on a daily basis, like, you know, our terminal emulators and text editors and whatnot. But, you know, where I go in that direction is going to be different from every other user. I'm just happy getting through the base install for today. Matter of fact, I probably will clone this VM a few times, this Gentoo VM, because I've got the base system now. I'll clone the base Gentoo install, and then I can go in several different directions because I have multiple clones of this VM. So it's nice that I've got to this point. This is where I want to stop for the day. And that is pretty much installing Gentoo Linux in Virtualbox. I started this shortly before noon. I want to say 11:45 a.m. is about when I started this process. Right now, it is right at 5 p.m. So 5 hours and some change to do this. Now, it took me a long time to do this because I did this in a VM. A VM is not using my full system resources. It's using just a fraction of my system resources. That takes some time. 2, I'm recording. So, you know, I'm having to pause and explain things because I'm recording this for you guys. So I probably spent twice as long doing this as what it really should take. 5 hours. Really, if I wasn't recording video, reading through the wiki, you know, making sure to explain everything as I do it, this probably would have been 2 hours, maybe. I probably could have got it down to a 2-hour install time. Not too bad. All right, before I go, got to give a special thanks to my patrons. AK, Ron, Mr. Neely Pops, John, Brian, Carl, Greg, Carlos, Rob, Matt, Darkwin, Mark, Christian, Jake, Benjamin, Stephen, Marcus, Interceptor, Bob, Leor, Omar, Silvio. You guys rock. You guys help make this show possible. Peace, guys.